Welcome to the video about all my September works, and I want to start from Epic World of Tolkien, which I started in the end of August to do the background. Then, after short struggle with the paper, I abandoned it for a week, but in the beginning of September I finished it, and now I have two pictures finished here, two pictures with ugly creatures and two pictures where I had a huge struggle with paper. Here it's easier to say what I hadn't used for the background. Layer of watercolor paints which created ugly stains. Then I tried to save it with pencils, which also didn't help a lot. Then I put a layer of gel crayons and I tried to spread a layer of crayons with my fingers on top of watercolor. So in the end everything looks almost exactly like I imagined it, with dark background where you can see various shades of green, black, even a little bit of blue, and those ugly orcs. I am glad that I started to practice to work in this book with these pictures with ugly creatures. Now I have two of them, and at least for such pictures I can justify why I have not very accurate backgrounds with some stains, with blotches of color. But I think that it was the last picture where I attempted to use watercolor, even watercolor on top of gesso. I think I definitely will be coloring more here, and I already know which picture I would love to color next, but I will switch to other materials, maybe Inktense, but I think about acrylic and gouache paints, because I love to color pictures where I have huge landscape backgrounds, and there I'm not sure that I can use Inktense. I know how to use them, I don't have enough skills for it. And for gouache and acrylic maybe it would be easier for me. Anyway, I'm glad that I colored them. For the orcs I used mix of pencils, a little bit of Prismacolors, a little bit of polychromoses to get their greenish skin and then this wooden and metal texture. So orcs, it was easy to color, and I absolutely love how pencils work on this paper. Problem is those backgrounds which totally don't want to work with watercolor, and it's a pity because for me all those landscapes, they could be perfect for watercolor. Anyway, that's my second finished picture here, and I'm glad that I didn't abandon it in the moment when I was very disappointed in my attempts to do a background. And of course, next point in this video will be my progress in Matchstick Mouse. And in September I tried to color in 3 books, not to abandon my springtime, to do at least something in summer, and to start autumn book. In October I also plan to start Halloween book. So in springtime I added 3 pictures. The rainy one, it was interesting again to practice how to do raindrops. They look very childish, but I think that for the style of this picture it's acceptable. Maybe for other books like Goodrich or Carson I wouldn't do such childish looking drops of water which I did with Posca, but here I think that it matches the rest of the picture, and as usual I absolutely love their company, the bug, the form, and those tiny leggy of the mouse. They are so nice, and I'm happy how I did small owlet here, because on some of my previous pictures those all, it looked a little bit crazy with all feathers. They look like they are wet. So all wasn't my best part of those pictures, and finally with mix of gray and brown I think that I managed to color it nicely. And then I started part of the book which is the most difficult for me, where I have some animals which I probably hadn't colored yet in any coloring books. So here I did this sleeping bear. I don't know why he is sleeping during the spring season. For me it was much more of fall or autumn part of the book, and it also probably made influence on the colors which I selected for the walls of his hole where he's sleeping. And only in the end I used a lot of green for the leaves, so maybe it wasn't actually a very spring picture, but I love how I did bear. I decided that I don't want to spend a lot of time on doing a very realistic fur texture, that it's better to make it more plain without individual hairs on fur. It's better to work on highlights and shadows, and I think that I managed to do it. And I think that also mouse is so sweet here, even if the size is very small. I added this very bright lilac violet head, and we immediately look at the mouse when we look at the picture. And finally I did one of the best pictures here. I wanted to do it from the moment when I got the book, but I waited. I knew from the beginning that I want to do this beautiful lilac lavender violet sky, and I wanted to color the Eiffel Tower. And the moment when it has lights on it, I really love this look. The Eiffel Tower with lights, it looks magnificent. It's interesting during the whole day, but during the dusk and evening time when it is highlighted, it looks even more interesting. So that's why I added those stars and tiny dots which represent lights. And it was also interesting to color those trees. I added a little bit of pink to show that again it's a spring picture and trees are in bloom. It was a little bit strange to color it during fall season, trees in bloom, but I try to remind myself that when I color in spring book, I have to maintain this season spirit. And again, look at this cutie in this French hat, absolutely adorable. And I love these tiny additions like cheese or baguette, so really very nicely done by Morgan. And here I have only 2 unfinished pictures with Guinea pig and with rabbits. Please wish me luck that in October I finally finish springtime coloring book. I don't believe in it myself, but I will try. In summer book I did only 1 page, but it was quite interesting to do, because here we have nuts and fruits market where Matchstick Mouse participates. And first I tried to identify all berries, all nuts, and then I abandoned this idea. So where I was able to recognize blackberries or cherries or strawberries, that's okay. And the rest of the things I simply colored according to the color balance on the page. I think that yellow hat also looks quite nice, and I love to select new colors for the hats, and I think that my Matchstick Mouse has such a huge collection of those hats. Well, it's really fun. I started autumn coloring book. Well, it's not my favorite because in many pictures we have black background, and sometimes it's nice when you don't need to color background, but sometimes I don't mind to do background by myself. Instead of black I would select other color, but still many pictures here are nice, and of course I started it with huge pleasure and I intend to continue. So I did this forest school. Just look at all those spiders, which maybe they help Mouse to learn something, or maybe Mouse teach them how to write letters. Anyway, picture is adorable. I again try to maintain this autumn spirit by adding a lot of yellow-orange leaf, and even on the green area I use more yellow-green leaves to show yellow-green colors to show that leaves started to lose their summer brightness. And you know that I love to color mushrooms, so it was also quite fun. Next one is mail delivery. I think that I simply love this joy which we have, which we can feel from this picture. I love to get mail myself, so I can feel this pleasure. Maybe he just received mail, maybe he, with the help of the snail Matchstick Mouse, will send this letter to someone. Anyway, it's a lovely page, very quickly done. I experimented a little bit on the snail. I decided that for such childish picture I can use a little bit unusual colors and to make snail brighter. Again, when I remember that it's autumn book, I tried to add at least a little bit of yellow leaves behind the snail. Next one is this babysitting for the fledglings, which I call it. And again, I don't know why it's part of the autumn book, because normal birds, they have their children during springtime. But well, maybe this bird has unplanned pregnancy and now Matchstick Mouse helps to raise children. Anyway, the picture itself is really very nice, and I think that with very bright canary yellow I managed to attract attention to those adorable small birds, and with a red head, Matchstick Mouse again is the focal point of the whole composition. And where is the last one? I think that I selected it because I really love that here we have appearance of Mama Mouse, and she definitely baked something very yummy here. Here I spent some time working on reflections from this candlelight on the wall, on the head, and again the whole company is here. In the end I decided that I don't want to make a white cook head on the mouse, and that she will be very fashionable in this vibrant red. So here I even used some Arctics and probably Star Joy pencils. They are not very good for the whole page, but for the background they could be used. Oh, and I also used Arteza pastel set, which I, again, not a huge fan of, but in one layer when you don't need very complicated layering, but when you need those tender pastel colors, they actually are quite helpful, especially when you use them with some vibrant colors from Prismacolor set. So that was all from Matchstick Mouse. And now let's switch to Teresa Goodrich. In September I touched only 2 of her books, but in each of them I did 2 pictures. Somehow for me it's always such thing. When I decide to work in some book, and when I do first page, usually I want immediately to start another one, but after the second I feel a little bit tired of the book and I want to switch. Sometimes I switch after first page, but it's only because I got some requests to do the next page, but for me it's quite comfortable to do 2 pictures in one book and then to select another one. Maybe let's start from Country Kitchen Charm, because that's what I did in the beginning of September. Surprisingly, all my finished pictures, they are mostly in the beginning of the book. So I did this English tea party. And here the most complicated thing was to film and to catch on video and on photo those tender colors of white china. In real life I can see many shades of pencils which I used here. A little bit of cream, a little bit of blue, gray, clay rose, lavender. Everything I put here to show shading on the white china. On photo and screen it was a nightmare to catch them. And apart from this area, the rest was quite easy to do. As usual in this book I experiment with various color combos for wooden textures, because we have them in this book in each page, and I love to make them a little bit more yellowish, a little bit more beige, sometimes with more reddish color, so I try to experiment with wood. And here I decided that flower bouquet will be the focal point. I used some bright, vibrant colors for flowers, so I think that the first thing where you look at, it's these flowers, and only then all those yummy things which we have for this English breakfast or maybe English tea party. I don't know, but I think that it's nicely done. Now when I look at it, I think that it would be much easier to color if I would do a darker tablecloth. Here I did white china on almost white tablecloth. It was challenge for my coloring skills, but it would be easier if I would do bright tablecloth. Anyway, many pictures here are similar to this one, so I have a lot of pictures to practice yet. And the next one I called Italian kitchen. Why? Because we have pasta and we have wine. Even if wine is probably French, still, somehow for me it's more Italian kitchen. Again, a lot of wooden elements. Then I selected this violet, blue and pomegranate colors as couple of very bright color accents. And then interesting practice for wine. Here we have rose wine, then very dark red color. Here bottles, well, I can't say that they have perfect shape, but I really tried to make them three-dimensional. Now let's switch to Autumn Charm, which for me is the best autumn book. The previous one also isn't bad, but this one is more interesting. So here I did two pictures. First with horse. Usually I am not very confident in coloring horses, but here we have only head and here we have mostly mane. And mane it's similar to coloring hair, so I decided that I won't mess up on such a small part of the horse. Of course, on all full pictures I used an all color palette from Prismacolor pencils. Yellow color, ochre color, terracotta, all orange pencils, and a set of green colors of lime peel, kelp green, so where in green we can see yellow undertone, and of course a lot of brown colors. It helps to create this warm atmosphere, but I quickly feel tired from it, so I did only two pictures here and I did short break. But of course I intend to return to this book in October because we have this very short season when we can color in this book. I don't feel inspired to color in it during winter or spring. Books like Wish You Were Here or Main Street Icon or Kitchen I can color through the whole year, and this one is seasonal, so I try to dedicate the biggest time during fall season to this book. Probably here my favorite part is this door, which I decided to make like it was painted in turquoise gray, but color started to fade and it has this very old look. Probably that's my favorite part, but the scarecrow also is quite nice. The second is with chrysanthemums. I love these flowers and of course I selected it as my second project here. Well, now what can I say here? It was very colorful and during the whole coloring process I was afraid that picture would be probably too colorful. The most controversial part was this roof, which I have difficulty to select which colors to use. And maybe I had to use more Posca pens to mask the thickest black lines, because on many pictures here I would prefer much more delicate lines. But this part which we have on the foreground I love. I love this bicycle, I love this very colorful flower pots with chrysanthemums, and I feel that I missed coloring pumpkins, so it was a pleasure to color them. As usual, I used Prismacolors and a lot of acrylic markers, both Posca, Arctics and Thule Art, whatever I was able to find in my stash, for all yellow colors, for olive green colors, for violet and purple colors I tried to use here, because on flowers I think that it's important to get rid of the black lines. Next I have ivy. Here I did a very simple picture. I got a request to color it, and in the beginning I was thinking that maybe to make it in in matching color palette, but this one I did probably 4 years ago, so very long story. And now I use much more vibrant color palettes. I prefer stronger contrasts. So in the end I decided that it won't be very bad if similar pictures will have different color palettes. Some of the colors I used here, so a little bit of blue and magenta colors, so they are not totally strangers between two of them. But I'm glad that I did this dark background. I think that it helped me to show better the shining around the lanterns, and it was fun to color those tiny teapot and cups here. So I wasn't sure that this bright green was the right choice, but now I think that it added exactly the necessary bright detail here, like very bright color in the central part. It really helped to concentrate attention here. And yeah, background totally made with pencils. On this paper Prismacolors work well, so if the background isn't very big, I don't mind to do it with pencils. But this one was made with soft pastel, if I remember correctly. So that was 4 years ago, and that's now. I finally started Gardens and Goddesses third volume. Honestly, I started it in July when I very quickly did poppies, and it was very instructive for me to do poppies in 2-color palette with polychromos pencils, more orange and more like classic red. So I did it very quickly, I enjoyed it, and then I realized that I somehow need to finish it. The first problem was that I totally didn't know how to color face in profile, and the second problem was this empty background. And I put it aside and I hadn't touched it for 2 months. But in September I realized that it deserves to be finished. And I somehow colored her face. Oh well, I wasn't very proud of this background, I am not proud of it now. I simply totally felt uninspired to do something more complicated for the background. But I am proud how I added hair. If you are familiar with original picture, you probably remember that the poor girl didn't have hair at all, maybe just a couple of lines here. So I added a little bit of hair here, like a bun probably, at least several strands visible behind the poppies, and then I added her hair. I tried to make an impression that there is maybe wind, that's why they have this movement of her hair, and also flowers and petals. And I decided that if I add a little bit of blue around the main image, and if I leave white area around this petal, so it will be maybe not beautiful, but at least acceptable. So that's why I finished this one. And well, next time I will definitely select picture where we have more well-balanced page, where I don't need to fill in the background. Pictures are good, but somehow I simply wasn't in the mood for something very creative for the empty background. So next time I will be more careful when I select picture. In September I worked in 2 mythographic books. The first is Wanderlust, and if you ask me, I don't know what to answer myself. Why among all the mythographic books, where I actually prefer books by Fabiana Attanasio, I continue to color in Wanderlust by Alessandra Fusi, where pictures look like craziest collages, craziest subject, and they also have those ugly hidden objects, but somehow they attract me. Maybe by this illogical object combos. So there is something really nice. Maybe I don't feel pressure when I color here. Anyway, my September work was very tropical page, and I did it with polychromos pencils. here I decided that I won't be masking hidden objects because they weren't very ugly. They maybe didn't match exactly the total idea of the page, but at least this wizard's head of this chest with pirates chest, or some other, this golden goblet, or this chess figure. So they also weren't very ugly like kitchen stuff which we have on previous pictures. So I decided that I can keep them. The only one I covered was that something eatable, and it definitely didn't match this corner where we have only leaves. It was interesting to do waterfalls and the volcano here. Well, I think that I stopped here my experiments with various pencil brands. Polychromoses were okay here, and my previous works I did with various budget pencils like Sucolor and even Artix, Artisan. Sucolors are okay, but the next picture after this one I did with Prismacolors. And honestly, even if paper is good for all pencils, Prismacolors probably are the best. Maybe in the future I will switch between Prismacolors and Polychromoses. Well, so I'm glad that I did this one, but I think that after this finished picture, Wanderlust will go to the shelf for quite a long period of time, because I need to pay attention to the winter books which I have in Mythographic series. And also in September I got this Deep Blue by Fabiana Atanasio, and I realized that I absolutely love it. In Deep Blue so far I did only one picture, but I really want to color many pictures here. And maybe this Deep Blue picture, it's my favorite, my best in September. I did this background with watercolors. Watercolors are not optimal for this paper, but you can work with them if you learn how. When I apply the first layer of watercolors, they start to look dull, not very vibrant after drying, but paper allows you to apply many layers. You won't damage the surface of the paper if you apply many layers. You can't work with wet on wet technique, but you can use glazing, and that's exactly what I did here. I used Indothrone blue, I used violet, I added a little bit of green and purple colors to add some additional color accents to the night sky, and after 2 or 3 layers of watercolor I got exactly the vibrancy which I wanted for the background. Then I did those bubbles, I don't know, bubbles of water, bubbles of air here, and I started to work with water-soluble Kohinoor Mondeluz pencil, but after applying water, color wasn't as vibrant as I wanted, so it's a mix of blue watercolor and blue watercolor pencil. Pencil helped me to work in smaller areas, and watercolor helped me to get more vibrant color. The rest I did with Prismacolors, and I really enjoyed it. From the beginning I had this idea that lantern and this maybe book with fairy tales, there were sources of light, and I tried to emphasize it by adding some sparkles here going from the book, and bright yellow halo of light around lantern and book. Here everything I did with Prismacolors, apart from this light highlights on the bed clothing, where I added a little bit of pastel artisan. Prismacolors worked well. I did this wooden texture very quickly, they cover paper nicely. So yeah, that's probably my favorite in September, and I'm very proud that this time, when I started from the best picture in the book, usually I don't do such thing, I prefer to start from something less precious. But here I started from the best page, and I managed to do it exactly like I managed like I imagined it. So I call it Dreaming of Whales. And yeah, maybe this one is dolphin, but who cares? Girl probably was reading something inspiring and now she has this perfect dream. Anyway, I am proud of myself when I did this one. In the beginning of September, I did this book page in Hexenstube, The Witch's Cottage, probably, by Hannah Carson. And it was my first page here. I was very reluctant to start it because I still feel not very confident when I return to do pictures in Hannah Carson. I don't want to mess up, but on the other side I tell myself that you have the full book, so why you are afraid that you won't mess up? I simply feel that I started to lose a little bit my skills when I do pictures in Hannah Carson, but this one really helped me to return my confidence. Yeah, here I had another one which I really wanted to color, but maybe I will think about it in October or better in November. So this one I did with Inktense for the background, Inktense pencils. Yeah, finally I blow away dust from my Inktense pencils, and the rest is Prismacolors. I decided that I can justify to use unusual colors for the leaves, to make apples like focal point very vibrant, and to make good contrast my leaves, they started to look this grayish blue color. Well, very simple, but yeah, I enjoyed it, and I reminded myself how much I enjoy to work in Hannah Carson books. Well, another picture with totally autumn vibe. It's in Klara Markova Fairy Celebrations. As usual, I forgot to put bookmark. And it's this one, this mushroom house. And of course I decided to color it because I wanted to color berries and mushrooms. Everything done with Prismacolor pencils. I love how they blend on this paper. Paper is amazing. And I have only one book by Klara Markova, and it's sometimes I want to have all of them, but to have only one book helps me to have at least some progress. So maybe slowly, one picture in 3 months, but I fill in the book and it's really good. So that's what I did. I don't know what to say. It was relatively easy. In the end, I usually feel overwhelmed when you already colored so many details and you still need to find some colors for the potion, for the remaining berries, for baskets. But here I think that it looks more or less well balanced. And of course my favorite part here is those mushrooms, which I divided into 2 color groups, because to color all of them with just one color it's boring, but to make some of them more reddish, I think that it was a good idea, and they look quite nice with all those blue-violet blueberries. My epic work of September is in Fragile World by Kerber Razanes. I hadn't touched this book for several months, and it's a pity. I realized that I miss coloring animals or birds. So in the beginning I intended to color spread with penguins. This one I want to color it already for many months, but somehow then I decided to do a underwater picture, and I did the spread with humphead wrasses or Napoleon fish. It's easier to pronounce. They have many names, and it was really interesting to learn better about those fishes, which are protectors of coral reefs. So they really are very important, and they suffer from fishing because they are also delicious as food, unfortunately. So we need to protect them. And the difficulty here was that mostly they have a lot of blue, deep blue, blue-green colors on their bodies, and that's also colors of the water. And here I wouldn't say that I managed to do a big difference. in color. I hope that if for the background I use watercolor paints, and I'm lucky that my edition of book allows me to work with watercolors very carefully, but at least one layer for the background I can use here. So I applied Indothrone blue colors here and even cobalt turquoise to do a layer of the water. On fishes I tried to use more violet blue ultramarine colors, but difference is in blue. Maybe in real life it's slightly visible, but not so much on the screen. But at least those very vibrant patches on scales and veils of yellow, this bright green colors, even touch of orange, they helped to make my fishes really bright and to stand up better against the blue background. So I was really nervous how to do those blue fishes against the blue background. But I had a lot of fun doing this frame of corals. I spent huge amount of time doing everything here with polychromos pencils. Here I used couple of Prismacolors, but the rest it's all polychromoses. I love polychromoses in this book. They could be used for smaller objects like these elegant corals. They could be used for bigger areas. They blend nicely here. And if I need more vibrant color accents, I use Prismacolors together with polychromoses. So it's a combo. Also, I was very reluctant to use watercolor here because here I have my precious eagle. But somehow everything went undamaged here, so that was another big concern. I deliberately decided to use limited color palette for the corals. I don't know realistic or no, because corals they can be in many color palettes, so I limited myself to those yellow, orange, magenta, pink, purple, and then a lot of violet for the background, and I think that it really worked well. I hope that my patrons also liked it, because I put everything from my skills into this page, and now I think that maybe before I switch to other books by Kirby, because I really want to color Mythic World, but maybe I will do another spread with penguins, because it's waiting already for a long time, those poor Galapagos penguins. I know all colors which I want to use here, but problem is available free time, because for this one I spent huge amount of hours, at least for me huge. And during maybe I spent here so many times that I could color probably 3 pictures by Teresa Goodrich. Anyway, it doesn't matter because I love the result and I am glad that I did some progress here. It's also one of my favorite books, and I'm also very happy when I can learn something about animals, fishes, and double benefits for me. Pleasure from coloring and something new to know, to learn. And yeah, my last work is still a work in progress in Colorless Kingdom, where I started this elf, where I still need to find color for her dress, because I have doubts maybe to make it in purple, maybe to make blue, maybe to make green, but different shade of green comparing to all those leaves. But so far it was quite pleasant work. I found that actually I don't mind to color on this paper, and those leaves I did with budget pencils. I used Star Joy Gold pencils, which I don't use frequently, but here they were not bad. The only problem was that they didn't have enough of dark colors. It's the big problem of that set. But I added dark green from polychromoses and I managed to do nice shading on the leaves. For the background and stone window I used alcohol markers here, so I think that when I finish this video, my next step will be to finish this lady, because I really love the she-elf, and for me she has something from fall season, maybe all those leaves. I don't know why I decided to color it as in fall mood, but maybe green would be the best choice here, but with golden embroidery. I hope to show you the finished picture in a couple of days. That was all, and I love my September results. I hope that in October I also will manage to color, that we won't have those terrible blackouts after bombing. So I'm full of good hopes, and I hope that my October also will be full of nice, pleasant coloring hours. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you like my September results. Somewhere in the beginning of October probably I will start to do more Halloween pictures, but in the beginning of the month I would love to do something with flowers, with beautiful leaves and berries, because I remember my video about the most inspiring fall pictures, and unfortunately I didn't manage to do many pictures from that list, so maybe I will do it in the beginning of October. Well, thank you once again, and I will see you very soon.